Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. My brother Liam is 2 years older than me. Growing up, he was always the golden child. He could do no wrong, even when he was doing everything wrong. He was the type of kid who got suspended from school, and my mom would blame the teacher. If he broke something, it was the object's fault. If he failed a class, the teacher was unfair. If he got caught stealing, the store was setting him up. And I was the quiet one, the overachiever. I never missed curfew, got straight A's, stayed out of trouble. And yet every achievement I had was brushed off. My parents never said they were proud of me. It was just expected. He got away with everything: parties, fights, car trouble, lying, cheating. You name it, they excused it. He's just a boy, they'd say. He's going through a phase. I lost count of how many times I heard my mother say, he has a good heart, he's just misunderstood. But that misunderstanding kept growing. By the time he was in his mid-20s, Liam had already been in and out of a few dead-end jobs, picked up a gambling habit, and had a string of toxic relationships. Every time he got into trouble, my parents bailed him out, financially, emotionally, legally. They paid his debts, covered his rent, bought him new cars when he crashed the old ones, even gave him money behind my back when he told them he couldn't afford food. But they never held him accountable, not once. I stayed home longer than most people my age. I was working full-time, saving for a place of my own. I had dreams, plans, but I also felt a strange sense of obligation. To stay around, to keep the peace, to not abandon my family. That all changed in a single night. I was 25 when it happened. It was a weekend, and Liam and I were both invited to a party, a mutual friend's birthday. It wasn't a wild party, just music, drinks, the usual. I wasn't drinking because I had an early shift the next day. But Liam? He was already drunk by the time I showed up. He had his girlfriend with him at the time, Jess. They had one of those messy, off and on, constantly fighting kinds of relationships. About an hour into the night, they got into another argument. I was in the backyard when I heard yelling coming from the front of the house. I walked around and saw Liam and Jess in a heated fight on the lawn. She was crying. He was slurring his words and getting louder. Then she said something, I didn't hear what, and turned to walk away. That's when Liam shouted, "You want to see what I'll do? I'll show you exactly what I'll ducking do." And he stormed off toward his car. I knew immediately what he was about to do. I ran after him, heart pounding. He was fumbling with his keys when I grabbed his arm and said, "You're not driving. Give me the keys." He shoved me, hard. I wasn't expecting it. I stumbled and fell sideways into a row of bushes lining the driveway. By the time I got up and ran after him, he was already peeling out of the driveway, tires screeching, engine roaring. I called him. No answer. I called my parents. No answer. All I could do was hope he'd cool off and come back in one piece. An hour later, around 2:30 a.m., I was woken up by police knocking at our front door. Liam had crashed into a tree on a rural road. Apparently, he'd been driving erratically and lost control. By some miracle, no one else was on the road, and he hadn't hit another car. He ended up in the ER with some bruised ribs, a minor concussion, and a broken wrist. The car was totaled. The officer said he'd been arrested for DUI. I was in shock, worried sick, but also relieved he was alive. My parents, they were furious, at me. That's what my dad said when the officers left. "You were there. You should have stopped him." My mother chimed in, "How could you let this happen? You know how he gets. You should have done something." I tried to explain. I told them I'd tried to stop him, that he shoved me, That he was already halfway down the street before I could react. That I was just one person, and he was twice my size, and 3 drinks in. It didn't matter. They said I should have done more. I should have called the cops before he left. I should have thrown myself in front of the car, apparently. They didn't care that Liam had made a choice. His choice. Instead, they made me the scapegoat. 2 days later, they sat me down and said, "We think it's best if you find somewhere else to stay." Just like that. I hadn't even fully processed the accident yet, and they were kicking me out of the only home I'd ever known. I didn't speak to them again. I moved in with a coworker for a few months, picked up more hours at work, and eventually got my own apartment. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I started building a life, slowly, carefully. I stopped looking at my phone expecting birthday texts or holiday calls. They never came. I heard from mutual contacts that Liam kept spiraling. He lost job after job, gambled away whatever money he had, got another girl pregnant and left her, got sued for unpaid child support, got arrested twice for driving without a license. My parents? Still defending him, still bailing him out, still enabling him. Meanwhile, I was working hard. I started a career in IT, saved aggressively, and eventually bought a small condo. Nothing fancy, but mine and paid for. And then last week, out of nowhere, they came knocking. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was just cleaning the kitchen when the buzzer rang. I checked the monitor and saw my parents standing outside my building with luggage. I froze. I hadn't seen their faces in 7 years. I opened the door slowly, unsure what to expect. My mom looked worn. My dad looked tired. They smiled like nothing had happened. Before I could speak, my mother said, "We need somewhere to stay." Just for a while, I just blinked. "Excuse me?" "We lost the house," my dad said. "Liam's legal stuff. It drained everything." Turns out, they'd been covering for Liam this whole time. His fines, his debts, his lawyers, his rent, his child support. He never changed. But they kept paying for his mistakes until they lost everything. They had no money, no home, no savings. They'd been couch surfing for months, and now they were here, expecting me to help. No apology, no, "We're sorry for how we treated you." Just, "We need you now." I looked at them. I remembered that night. The silence, the blame, the coldness, the way they discarded me so easily. And I said, "No." Then I closed the door. They've been texting me non-stop since. My mom left a voicemail crying, saying I was cruel and ungrateful. My dad wrote a long email listing all the things they did for me, how they gave me life, raised me, fed me, clothed me. My aunts and uncles have started chiming in too, saying family is family, and you only get one set of parents, and you should be the bigger person. But where was that energy when they kicked me out? Where were all these people when I was sleeping on a friend's couch, wondering how I became the villain in a story I didn't even write? They let my brother destroy his life, and theirs, while blaming me for failing to stop him. And now that the house of cards has finally collapsed, they want me to catch them. I can't. I won't. So tell me, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for slamming the door in my parents' faces after they kicked me out for letting my brother drive drunk, but now want to live with me because they lost everything trying to fix him? Not the a-hole. OP was their emotional and moral scapegoat his entire life. They didn't parent. They enabled. Liam was never taught consequences, and instead of learning through hard knocks, he had his parents to soften every blow. And when things did go wrong, they didn't blame the grown man behind the wheel. They blamed the one person who tried to stop it. That's not just cruel, that's abusive. OP didn't abandon his parents. They abandoned OP the moment they decided enabling Liam was more important than protecting the one child who was trying to do the right thing. Closing that door was just OP enforcing the boundary they created when they kicked him out. Good for OP. And now let's hear community's opinion. I hate when people try to weaponize the phrase, "we gave you life," as if that entitles them to lifelong access to your peace. They didn't just fail you. They punished you for something that wasn't your fault. You tried to stop your brother. You were physically pushed to the ground. You had no power to stop what happened. But they needed someone to blame, and since Liam was untouchable in their eyes, they chose you. That moment when they kicked you out told you everything you ever needed to know about their priorities. They chose Liam then. Let them live with the consequences now. Not the a-hole in the slightest. You were their backup plan. That's all this is. They didn't check on you after they kicked you out. They didn't apologize, didn't ask if you were okay, didn't even try to reconnect. But now that the child they propped up for decades has ruined their lives, suddenly you're useful again. That's not family. That's manipulation. Let them call you cruel. Let the flying monkey scream. You're not cruel. You're just not willing to bleed for people who left you for dead when it was convenient. And honestly, you owe them nothing. Not a roof, not a meal, not even an explanation, not the a-hole. I hope you know how strong you are for surviving that kind of emotional betrayal. Not just once, but over and over. You tried to protect your brother from himself, and your reward was being thrown out like trash. Now they want to act like none of it happened just because they've run out of other people to clean up the mess. No, actions have consequences. You spent years building something stable because they forced you to survive alone, and now they want to benefit from that effort? Absolutely not. Your home is your sanctuary. You don't owe that to the people who treated you like the problem just because you didn't fit their fantasy of who the golden child should have been.
I, female 21, have a cousin, Liv, 21 female. Liv is my aunt's stepdaughter, but I've known her since she was 7, so to me she's just my cousin. But this becomes relevant. My mother is my grandfather's stepdaughter also. Again, relevant. My grandparents set up a college fund for me when I was little. I ended up not going to college, so the fund was never used, and my grandparents said they would keep the money until I wanted to use it for something like an apartment. When I turned 21, I got access to a trust fund set up by my other grandfather, Mum's bio dad, so I've never used the college fund money. Ever since learning this, Liv and my aunt have been saying that Liv should get the money from my unused college fund to pay off her student loans, since my grandparents didn't set up a college fund for her. My grandparents said no to this, so they tried to convince my mum to help them sway my grandparents. My mum absolutely shut this down and said my aunt is a hypocrite because she spent her whole life taunting her over the gifts she got from her grandparents that my mum didn't because they weren't her grandparents. Since then, my aunt and Liv moved on to badgering me. I keep telling them I don't have any right to tell my grandparents what to do with their money. We are all staying with my grandparents for Christmas, and they've been cornering me constantly. Eventually, I got sick of it and told Liv she was an entitled brat for going around harassing people for money that wasn't hers in the first place. Liv started crying and said I had no right to say that since I've never worked a day in my life, and that she should have had a college fund from them in the first place. She and my aunt have left me alone since the argument, but Liv seems really hurt and has been quiet for a couple of days. My grandparents keep asking why she is sulking, but she hasn't told them, and I haven't either, but I'm wondering if I went too far. The thing is, I know I'm lucky, but that's all it is, luck. I've never asked anyone for their money or thought I deserved it, just because of who I happen to have in my family. I don't think it would be right of me to even ask my grandparents to do something with their money that they obviously didn't want to do in the first place. But I keep wondering if what I said to Liv was too harsh. Not the a-hole. Your grandparents saved this money for you and your future, and that was their decision. Your cousin isn't entitled to any money from them, and clearly not the money they set aside for you. Not the a-hole. Those tears are so crocodile, Steve Irwin would hunt them. Both Liv and your aunt have no problem dishing it out, but the second it gets turned back on them, they're all waterworks. If anything, I'd let your grandparents know the whole situation and see what they think about it, since the two of them seem so entitled to the grandparents' money. Who even told them you have an unused college fund? Why is your personal finance business even being discussed? If you mentioned it, stop discussing your financial business with other people, or entitlement like this will keep happening. If someone else in the family did, you need to confront that person about telling your personal business to people who have no need to know. I was married to my late wife for 5 years before she passed last year. Those 5 years were the best time of my life, and I was head over heels in love with her the entire time. She was the most wonderful woman I've ever known. I have 2 kids from previous relationships, and she treated them better than their bio moms. She bought them great gifts for their birthday and Christmas when their own bio moms wouldn't even call. After we got married, my late wife adopted my kids and they became our kids. Her family are a-holes and never really approved of our relationship. They didn't meet my kids until the day of the wedding. Then it took my late wife arguing with them for months before they included the kids in family kids outings, such as trips to Disney or vacations. Before she became sick, she was in a huge fight with her parents because they had a college fund for the rest of the grandkids except for our kids. Once she was diagnosed, they felt guilty and finally started college funds for ours. When she passed, we've had limited contact with her family. Last month, I saw on social media that they're planning a Christmas in Italy. They're from there and still have family there, but our kids are not invited. I called them to chew them out. I don't care if they're not talking to me, but these two kids are legally hers and are inheriting her estate. They're legally their grandkids. We're in a huge fight. They already left the country, but I'm making it known on all of social media that they're actively excluding their grandkids. My parents are telling me to cut it back and think I'm taking it too far, but I don't think it's right for them to ignore two innocent kids. You're the a-hole. Your entire post tells the world you're an entitled a-hole. Let's look at it from your in-laws' point of view. Their daughter, sister, married a guy with 2 children from 2 different women. Then they're guilted into providing college funds for 2 children with whom they have no connection. Now the deadbeat dad is trying to publicly shame them into paying for and taking these 2 children overseas to meet complete strangers. You're the a-hole times millions. You're the a-hole. I'm sorry for your loss. I really am. But you knew that your in-laws weren't fans of you. You don't like them and call them a-holes. You admit that they didn't approve of your relationship. Now that their daughter is gone, why would they put time and effort into maintaining relationships with you and your kids? You saw your wife as your kid's mom. She saw herself as their mom. But they never did. They saw them as yours. And now, with their daughter gone, they don't see the point of doing so, and they're allowed to do so. You must have known how they felt. Them not maintaining contact, and now involving the kids in their activities, cannot have come as a total surprise, I hope. So why would you want to subject your kids to people who clearly don't like them? You're the a-hole. I understand you're hurt, but the mistake you and your wife made was trying to force her family to care about your kids simply because she did. She made the choice to be in a relationship with you. She made the choice to love and adopt your kids. Her family never made that choice. You can't force someone to care about your children simply because your wife adopted them. I, 42 male, have a sister, Sarah, 33 female. Growing up, our dad had his own small business, and mom was an office manager. We lived a comfortable life, but was not rich by any means. Our parents told us that they will pay for our 4-year degree and grad school should we decide to go. They made it clear that the money is for school only, and not just free money. They stressed that if we decided not to go to school, they're not giving us the money for a house or anything. They said they worked hard for their money, so they're going to retire early and enjoy their lives together. Once they pass, we'll get whatever is left, but we should expect nothing because they're really going to enjoy their lives. Does it sound harsh? Yes. Is it reasonable and fair? I think so. They were setting us up for life as adults and growing up. I saw how much they sacrificed for us. I truly believe they deserve to enjoy the last half of their lives as they see fit. I'm okay with receiving nothing. That is because I make a decent living as an electrical engineer with an MBA and my wife is an attorney. We're doing well. Sarah, on the other hand, is not doing so well. She didn't listen to my parents and decided she wanted to travel after high school and not go to college. She asked our parents to fund her traveling, but they refused and told her she's 18 and can earn her own traveling money. She moved to the West Coast and went no contact for a while from all of us, until about 3 years ago. She moved back into our lives, but we're not close. About 2 years ago, she asked my parents for money to put down on a house because she's tired of renting, but they refused. They said their offer to pay for a 4-year degree and grad school still stands, but they're not paying for anything else. She complained to me, but I agreed with my parents and told her it's not too late to get a degree and a better paying job. She didn't like my answer and went low contact. This brings us to our current situation. Next year is a major anniversary for my grandparents who live in another country. My family and my parents are going there to celebrate along with family members from all over the world. This will be a huge family gathering with people from all over the world flying in, and we're excited to go. However, it's an expensive trip and it'll cost about $20,000 for my family, me, wife, 2 kids. Sarah is married with no kids, but she can't afford to go, so she asked our parents to pay for her and the husband to go. They again refused and said they'll still pay for her college, to which point she blew up at them. She called me to complain about how they're living in a crappy apartment, driving barely working cars, and have no savings, and our parents refuse to help. I told her she made choices in her life and she's responsible for it. I said our parents are incredibly generous to still offer to pay for her college, and it's still not too late. She hung up, and I think we're about to go back to no contact. Am I the a-hole for taking this stance? Update. I'm going to answer some common questions. Growing up, we were not upper class. We were middle class. My dad worked 7 days a week and 12 hours a day at his business. They always bought used cars and would drive them until it got too expensive to fix. A couple of years ago, my dad bought my mom their first brand new car as an anniversary gift, and it was a Toyota Camry. My sister has no learning disability that we know of, and growing up, she was a solid B student. I haven't heard any talks about trade school, so I don't know if they're willing to pay for it or if she's willing to go. However, since my dad was a business owner, he values making your own way, so he has offered her money to start her own business. He told her to come up with a business plan and go pitch it to the banks. If they're willing to loan her money, he'll give her the same amount interest-free. She never did. My sister is not a bad person. In fact, she's as normal as anyone in the room. She just doesn't like to be told what to do and will usually do the opposite just to get a rise. It was cute when she was a teen, but now that she's in her 30s, it hasn't gotten her far. Our home country is on the other side of the world, and the date is during the summer because of all the kids being out of school. Because of it being the height of tourist season, the plane tickets cost about $2,500 each. Then we have to factor in hotel costs during tourist season and other costs such as food and car rentals. We're not 1%. My wife is a great attorney, but she's not the type you see on TV flying to work in a helicopter and having a corner office on top of the entire state building. She also drives a Camry. Not the a-hole. Sister was given a choice or a chance to improve herself and life, but keeps deciding to try her luck and smooch off. Definitely not the a-hole. I freaking love your parents for setting boundaries and sticking with them. And good for you supporting your parents' decision and giving reasonable advice to your sister, although she might not want to hear it. Not the a-hole. She's been told multiple times what the deal is and still chooses to ask for money for other things. This may be harsh, but your sis blaming it all on them just proves the point that she is being entitled about it. If she had taken more ownership in her situation and not just ranted at all of you, I wonder if the parents would have at least been willing to help with the reunion trip. Hard to want to help someone that blames you for their poor choices. My brother, 27 male, and I, 21 female, are currently in a morally challenging place. Recently, my father passed away and left us some inheritance, and we are suing our mother for her portion thereof. A little bit of backstory. A few years ago, my mom and dad divorced. They had a prenup stating that my mother and father's assets will remain their own, etc. However, my dad still cared about my mom and agreed to give her compensation close to $1 million to take care of herself, as she has been unemployed for more than 10 years, and she insisted on it. This was his pension fund, which paid out to her. Fast forward to 2021. My dad got virus and unfortunately passed away about a week after their divorce was finalized. Obviously, he didn't have time to change his will and testament before he died, which led to it mentioning his wife. She has usufruct on the 2 properties my brother and I are inheriting, despite her living in a different province. I would have been fine with this, however she told us her plans with these properties. She intends to ask us rent on the properties in our names, which we already pay the bills and maintenance for. And since she has usufruct, it is her legal obligation to pay maintenance on these properties. One is a farm, which is going to be quite expensive. Considering she has no job, she won't be able to pay the upkeep, since she blew all the money she got out of the divorce. We are also not allowed to sell these properties as long as she has usufruct. And if she agrees upon selling these properties, which are in our names, the full amount earned should go into an investment account, and she is then entitled to any and all interest earned on those investments. She also wants to turn the house I'm inheriting into a commune. Now, here is what my brother and I want to do. We want to sue her for the rights to our own properties. However, we'll agree to share a portion of the profit if we decide to sell the properties with my mother, because we still care about her, and also agreed to split the remaining estate into 3 in order for her to still live comfortably. She is not happy with the fact that we don't want to be controlled by her anymore. I feel like she is insisting on the usufruct just to keep the reins tight on both of her adult children, who she was aggressive towards and pushed away as children. In conclusion, we're suing our mom. We feel terrible about it, but it's the only way. Are we the a-holes? Not the a-hole, and you are being more than generous. She deserves nothing. Not the a-hole. This seems like a situation where she tries to milk it as much as she can, get as much money out of you, and control you like dangling your homes above your heads. She already got so much out of your late father. Condolences. But it doesn't seem to satisfy her, so she tries to milk her own children for money. She doesn't seem like a mother, just that she birthed you, and seems like a woman who is willing to control and manipulate her own children just to get a penny out of them. You can see that she doesn't even think of you as her kids, just a piggy bank who will feed her more money. She already got more than enough, and if she wants, she can work for it, not just mooch off of her kids. Don't give her anything just because she deserves it. Make your life comfortable and keep tabs on her, but go low contact, cause she will surely try to milk more and more. Not the a-hole, but usufruct doesn't work like your mother thinks anyway. She has the right to live there or use the farm as her job, but she cannot fundamentally change the property, aka turning the farm into a commune. Even renting it is iffy. She definitely cannot do it with your names because you yourself cannot legally rent out that property while she has the rights to use. Yes, it's time for a lawyer and not internet strangers. My cousin was only pregnant for 7 months when she recently miscarried about a month ago. While this is an extremely sad and terrible thing to go through, I'm not at all surprised because of those entire 7 months. She had been posting videos of her and her husband drinking on her social media. I'm not talking about the occasional wine or light beer, though I personally don't condone that either. I'm talking about multiple liquor shots in 30-second clips. While I do not wish a miscarriage on anyone, since she guiltlessly drank the entire pregnancy and posted it online for everyone to see, I don't feel like she deserves any pity. Which is why when my mom approached me and my sister and asked us all to chip in $50 to collectively send to her GoFundMe, I declined. My mom and sisters were very upset with me for refusing to donate, and my mom has since expressed multiple times how disappointed she is in me. My cousin and her husband are asking for $5,000, and the description of the fundraiser is very vague, not describing what this money is being used for. It just says, for grieving purposes. My husband and I have just recovered financially from the virus, and I can't justify handing over $50 to someone when I don't know what it is going towards right now. I could be the a-hole because it could actually be going to her for a good cause, but the fact she doesn't explicitly say what the money is going towards makes me suspicious. The baby has already been buried in a plot, and with a beautiful headstone both given by my grandparents, and I've last heard my cousin adamantly refuses therapy. This, of course, could have changed though. Admittedly, if I had not seen those drinking videos, I probably would not hesitate to donate, and no one knows what actually caused the miscarriage. I just feel like it's my money, and I shouldn't be pushed around for not giving it to someone who put their potential child in danger, even if it was the result of his death or not. Am I the a-hole for not donating? Not the a-hole. The baby has already been buried in a plot and with a beautiful headstone, both given by my grandparents. And last I've heard, my cousin admittedly refuses therapy. This alone shows that the burial plot and headstone have already been provided, funeral paid for, and your cousin is being super vague in the GoFundMe. With their past actions, it's not hard to believe they may just want it to party and move on. Every funeral expense has been covered, and she's been offered help. I just want to point out that your cousin didn't have a miscarriage. They're only miscarriages up to 20 weeks. She had a stillbirth. I can't even imagine how truly horrendous that was for her. The drinking may not have been a factor. It may well have been a genetic issue with the fetus. That said, you are not obligated to give money to anyone, particularly as they're not being specific about what it's for. Not the a-hole. Your cousin really needs some support. Not the a-hole. If the baby had been born alive, it likely would have had fetal alcohol syndrome and been disabled for life. I hope your cousin and her husband get treated for their alcoholism before trying again to have children.